Get a few thoughts from you on how Michael van Gerwen played and how Michael van Gerwen reacted after that match.
I'm flabbergasted. I was almost lost for words when I was listening to his interview with Philip RMC. I don't think Andy did anything wrong. I think Andy is very deliberate. He takes his time. That's completely within the rules. And the fact that Michael has accused him of playing every trick in the book, I think, is inaccurate.
Yeah, there is only one page in Andy Hamilton's book, and he's been reading it for many, many years and has played a certain way for the entirety of his career.
He's incapable of doing that, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to beat people straight up, so why would he do so? I tell you what, my last parting shot on Van Gerwen until later on will be this, and I'm going to quote Edmund Blackadder. This is a crisis. A large crisis. In fact, if you've got a moment, it's a 12-storey crisis with a magnificent entrance hall, carpeting throughout, 24-hour portage, and an enormous sign on the roof saying, "This is a large crisis."
140.
It is a crisis now.
And that's quite significant coming from Paul Nicholson, because he's been refusing to join the crisis camp.
140.
That's why I put it so eloquently, because I have been saying he's just going through a bit of a phase. Maybe a few things aren't going right, just waiting for things to click. But right now, he's just not playing well. But he's still in the quarterfinals.
He is, and neither of this pair will be fazed by the prospect of meeting him there, but do have to get past fellow major champion
75
in each other here. It was the Asp who got the job done last weekend, 6-2.
100.
Well, speaking of things that were said after matches, I was in the corridor, and I think I mentioned this yesterday. I was in the corridor when James Wade was defeated by Aspinall.
90. James, you require
flights on the floor and
161.
said, I don't know how I lost that match. You lost 6-2. Dart players, I tell you. Nightmare people.
130.
Don't speak to them in the seconds after
you
defeat.
154.
Well, Aspinall had to survive a scare against Jason Lowe yesterday. He's looking for a flying start here. Oh, yes.
134.
Oh, fancied that, didn't he?
James, you require 31.
Single 7 or 11? Double 10 is the option.
Game
And he
shot
gets
the
it.
first leg. James
Also just
Wade.
threw that second dart at double 10 with some force.
Second leg, James to throw
Or
first.
anywhere near
Game on.
that first attempt, and Aspinall is left thinking about what could have been.
Wade had a slow start against Sweden's Andreas Harrison yesterday, but then all of a sudden just clicked into gear. And got rid of his opponent in double quick time without having to produce anything remarkably special.
Well, if you're looking for a winner today, maybe go down the route of seeing who's been tested and come through it, and Aspinall is one of those players. He was tested yesterday by
100.
a phenomenal player, in my opinion. As for Wade, he doesn't really care about being tested, he just gets on with things.
174.
There is a 174 from Aspinall to get himself in front for a matter of seconds.
I do James Wade a disservice as well. The 167 was remarkably special in that match, even though he didn't need to go for it at the time. And that 180 was very well timed from the machine.
43. James, you require 96.
Gets two shots at double 18.
Game
takes
shot
it.
the second leg. James
In one.
Wade to
That
eliminate the
double.
first.
That double 18, that is the double that cost him in the Draftgate match. He missed that
177.
double to get to the world final. Cost him a lot of coin, that, and the chance to be world champion, which
100.
well, when it comes to his CV, there's only a couple of things missing, really, isn't there? Grand Slam, World Championship, Players Championship finals. There's not much missing.
The two that you mentioned first, he was in a very strong position in both of those tournaments, one in the final, one in that semi-final that you alluded to.
Where do you rank Wadey in the grand scheme of best players of all time.
100.
Is he outside of the all-time list because he is not world champion?
It's a very difficult question because there are many other things that would make his case for being in
59.
there. I mean, where do you want to cut us? Certainly in the top 10.
You'd have him in the top 10 of all time?
I would.
I think he's close to the top 10.
131.
I think there was an argument, well, not so much an argument, it was a discussion between Adrian Lewis and Wadey a few years ago. It was after Adrian had got the second world title.
100. James, you acquire 170.
They were arguing about what was best, having 2 world titles or a bunch of majors. It's a very interesting chat they had as Wadey looks for a second one and goes for the bull. Big fish! Ooh, he's looking good today, and with Van Gerwen not on form, and we're looking for potential champions today, Wadey could be someone who could sweep up.
Well, he had a 167 out yesterday. He's added 170 today, playing like one of the best players of all
59.
time, Paul.
Yeah, fabulous shot. And for me, the best dart of that combination was the second one, because his darts aren't particularly upright when they hit the
100.
board. So he had to hit that previous 60 hit with a lot of force. You can see there, the angle of entry for James's dart is nowhere near as upright as Nathan Aspinall's.
60.
So he has to throw them very hard to get them to nestle underneath. Great doubling stats for James. You can see that slight upright angle for Nathan, which is more
81.
prominent than that of the machine, who is wearing his less naughty shoes today. He's wearing the traditional coloured brogues as opposed to the Krusty the Clown models.
100.
Well, he's certainly on the march in this match. And if he can keep it up at this kind of level, then there is not much that Nathan Aspinall can do about it.
134.
Well, when Wadey's averaging 110, that's like everybody else's 115, really, isn't it? Doesn't put in these kind of stats often,
95.
which makes it more impressive when he does. Should he have won more European Tour titles, Murph? There's another question for you. He probably should have. He's only got a couple.
80.
Yeah, well, maybe they are going to start to be more spread out, judging by what we've seen from the world number 1 in recent weeks.
It's a very fair comment.
100.
Always
Nathan, you
difficult.
acquire
James Wade knows that
106.
more than most. Always difficult to pick up titles when there's a very dominant player, but right now there isn't. As Aspinall looks to try and get himself into this match.
90.
Fine margins.
James, you acquire
Wade
87.
has a chance to keep Nathan shut out. Is he looking at the bull again? No. Aspinall
77.
expected him to hit that. He was
Nathan, you
head tilting
acquire
in the
16.
background there, thinking, I'm not getting a shot here, am I?
This
He
could
is.
be a tide turner, couldn't it?
Each on the
Because
fourth
it is
leg.
against the
Nathan
dart.
Aspinall. Fifth leg, Nathan
For all the
to
big
the
hits
first. Game
from
on.
James Wade in this match, that could be a big miss at the end of it.
Yeah, he would have been in the distance there. As it stands, Nathan can still see him.
100.
He's in his dust, but he can still catch him. 4-0 down to James Wade is not impossible.
100.
It's very difficult. Should ask Scott Waits how he did win from 8-0 down at the Grand Slam. Do you remember where you were when that was happening?
100.
I was watching, I can't remember quite where.
I was watching in disbelief. Can't believe what I saw.
Is that a bar around your end? James Wade did average in 3 figures in a brilliant match against Gabriel Clements last weekend, but it was some way below that standard in his meeting with Aspinall.
You do realise, now that you said that someone is going to open an establishment called Disbelief.
134.
Oh, wait, were you watching the match? Were you watching the dots? In disbelief. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Well,
Good call, Murph. Good call.
He might be in disbelief if he sees Aspinall pop this 167, though. He won't need to, but James
Nathan,
didn't
you
need to
acquire
yesterday.
167.
And he might want something to get him going. That won't help.
45.
Well, you can see from Nathan's expression there that he hates that visit with a passion. Because now, Wadey's got the chance of getting to the 2 darter and making Nathan's shot even harder.
130.
Excellent stuff from James
Nathan, you
Wade.
require
So consistent.
122.
So 18s for the Asp. Might be able to use that. I stepped across to try and do so, but can't find the treble.
54. James, you require
Might find himself
71.
in trouble.
Double trouble?
Game
No such
shot the
thing.
fifth leg, James Wade. Sixth leg, James to throw first. Game on.
He's looking to reverse that fixture from last week, isn't he? He's doing a fabulous job of it. 15, 11, 12, 14. And this is a proper performance.
100.
Perhaps, along with the
60.
revenge on Aspinall for last week, it's a message to Michael van Gerwen.
Oh, trust me, Michael knows. Because an hour before we started, Van
41.
Gerwen and Wade were practicing together. Interesting how he tweeted last night, MVG, that he practiced with Gezi Price, and he says he's not going to do that again. Well, he chose to practice with the machine, which
140.
could be his opponent tonight. I don't get that. James Wade asked to practice with me before we played each other at the World Championships in the quarterfinals. I didn't realise it at the
100.
time, but it was a tactic to try and get in my head. It worked. If I could turn back time, I definitely wouldn't go anywhere near him.
Well, I wonder who did the asking. this
57.
afternoon.
I definitely think it would have been Michael. Michael prefers to practice with someone else as opposed to practicing on his own.
45.
Interesting that he was here on Friday practicing as well, Michael van Gerwen.
I think he's just trying to get reps, isn't he? He's trying to play through what's going on.
60.
Oh, look at that for a 60.
James Wade just trying to plough through this match.
You know it's not your day when you score 60 like that. The three tremendously thrown arrows, and none of them find
100.
the red bit. And Wadey picks one off at the very end there to have a chance at 1-1-5 and a 5-1 lead.
No reason why he won't pick off the
121.
finish.
James, you require
See him
115.
check out. 71 in the previous leg, 170 earlier on. He's going downstairs now. Nod from the Asp. He knows
59.
that a chance has presented
Nathan, you
himself,
require
and it's one that he
63.
probably has to take.
Got to start kicking now. Which double does he trust? Double 16.
31.
And that has been the story of
James,
this
you
game.
require 56.
Loads of wires. Wadey can't wait to get the tops. Trusty, double 10.
36.
Not so trusty.
Well, it's his turn to
Nathan, you
rest one
require
on the
32.
wire. 3 darts for Aspinall. Having to move. Landed slightly awkwardly. Doesn't move back.
Gauge
Does
on the
just
sixth leg.
sneak in
Nathan
the top
Aspinall.
corner of that double 4.
Right in the stanchion. Much to mull for the Asp. Rubbing his
Seventh
forehead
leg,
and
Nathan
probably got a
to
lot
throw
going on
first.
in his head right
Game
now,
on.
thinking, this has been a strange game so far for me. Averaging 90. It's usually 6 to 12 more than that.
65.
But when it's not going your way, you tend to get those trebleless visits and darts falling on the floor, and that's exactly what's happening to Nathan right now. And
140.
this man has got no sympathy. You notice that James is using a very, well, not a very different dart, but he's using a different dart
57.
to his usual one. Same construction, but different aesthetics.
Or just for today, or have you noticed this?
It's been the last couple
Recently.
of weeks.
60.
Apparently it's a limited edition model of his dart, but for someone like James who almost never changes anything about his setup, whether it's the point, the barrel, the stem, or
97.
flight, it's actually a big thing. When he changed to this flight just over a year ago, it was a big story because he'd been using the same flights for over 10
100.
years.
Slow and subtle changes from James Wade in all departments of his game. Did start changing his approach at times. I remember Started utilising the bullseye 25 a little bit more.
121.
Oh, he's a much better counter than he used to be. He used to be terrible. He used to ask the referee what he had left and what he'd scored more than any player on tour.
The
He
other,
has educated himself well.
Nathan, you
The other
require
little change is the,
161.
little license plate on the back of his shirt that creeped in a few years ago as well.
Yeah, that one came out of the clear blue sky. Well, Aspinall wants to go back to the 60, does he?
57. James, you require 142.
He broke James Wade a couple of legs ago, and James Wade broke straight back.
Staying there for double 11. Oh, and it was almost another biggie. Gave it the full
Nathan,
Darius
you require
Labanowski's pose.
104.
But this is the biggest shot of the match so far. What has he done there? 78 scored. Leaves 26. He's been hanging out with Jose. Could be worse. For a right-hander, they love double 13.
78.
Not right now, and it just doesn't seem
James,
to be
you
happening
require
for
11.
Nathan today.
Yeah, I'm not sure the reaction helped. Showed that he wasn't happy to be there. And he might not be
Shot the
here
seventh
much longer.
leg, James Wade.
Because for the second time,
Eighth leg, James
Wade just
fist.
cancelled out the
Game
break
on.
of throw. And Nathan Aspinall there, the architect of his own downfall.
Well, he's cutting a very frustrated figure at the back of the stage. He looks like a kid who's missed the ice cream man.
81.
Well, last night we saw a belter between Clearmacher and Ratajski. That was their second meeting in 2
93.
weeks. And I think there's a remote possibility that they could play each other next week as well, which is what I want to see because it's 1-1.
Well, Ratajski is
100.
coming next. Taking on Franz Rocher, a player that you're very impressed with, Paul.
Hard not to be impressed.
And we'll see Mensa Suljevic taking on Jamie
96.
Hughes as they get familiar with each other once again. Ross Smith, star performer on the first day, up against Max Hopp, who was a star performer
140.
certainly the early part of his match yesterday.
Really was good, wasn't he? 4 180s in 2 legs to start that match.
Yeah, sublime.
There he goes, 180.
180.
Nice leave as well. Look at the bullseye when he comes back. One thing at a time.
60.
One leg at a time.
Nathan, you require 132.
This to be 1 down and 3 to go.
Just some darts that have been so far off the mark from Nathan Aspinall in this match. It would be a
92.
very weighty way
James,
to
you
win.
require 120.
I have to agree. Everything on 20s. There's 3. There's 4. 2 more.
Game
James
shot of
Wade
the match.
gets it won. The Shanghai
James
shots
Wade.
from the machine, who played like a machine in that match, demolishing Nathan Aspinall and getting revenge for a reverse scoreline of 6-2 last weekend. It will be James Wade who takes on Michael van Gerwen in the quarter finals tonight, and playing like that,